I would like to call to order the Wednesday, April 9th, 2014 Metropolitan School District of Washington Township School Board meeting. And just for the record, to show that there are 4 board members present. One had a pre-arranged absence tonight, so it would be 4 board members tonight, so we still have a quorum. So Mr. Kite, before we start, could you actually, let me do the pledge first. How about that? Mr. Doss, could you lead us in the pledge this evening? Oh, did he leave the room? Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you duck out. Sorry. Sorry about that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Doss. As we normally do on our first meeting of the month, we read the mission statement of Washington Township. So, Mr. Kite, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The mission of Washington Township Schools is to develop lifelong learners and globally minded citizens by fostering the academic, creative, and social skills needed to achieve excellence in a multicultural environment.
Thank you, Mr. Kite.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you, President Turner, members of the school board. I have consent agenda 1 of 2 tonight that I would like to recommend for your approval. It includes the minutes of the March 12, 2014 regular meeting and the March 12, 2014 memorandum of executive session. It also includes 2 payroll calculation summaries from March 14, 2014 and March 28, 2014. Also a claims docket in the amount of $4,750,415.58 and an HR report with certified personnel containing 5 new appointments for 14-15. That would be appointments numbers 1 through 5, 5 maternity leaves, numbers 50 through 54, 6 retirements, numbers 16 through 21, 5 resignations, numbers 29 through 33, along with a classified personnel report inclusive of 9 new hires, numbers 215 through 223, 7 resignations, numbers 92 through 98, and 1 retirement, number 7. I do not have non-competitive grants, gifts, or donations to present for your approval this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Mr. President, since there do not appear to be any questions, I would move that the board approve consent agenda number 1 as presented by Dr. Woodson.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Second item is consent agenda number 2, Dr. Woodson.
Consent agenda number 2, I am presenting also President Turner and school board members for your approval this evening. It contains classified personnel report with 1 maternity leave, number 54.
And if I could,
Mr. Kite?
Mr. President, just as the board knows, I ask that this consent agenda item be split off into a separate item because it pertains to my daughter's maternity leave since she's employed by the township. And while I don't think that whether I vote yes or no on this or don't vote at all, that's going to stop her from having the child at a certain time, I do think that I probably should abstain from voting on this.
Mr. President, I'd move approval of consent agenda number 2 as presented by Dr. Woodson.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. So the motion carries 3-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is recognitions. Dr. Woodson.
Thank you very much. We've got a room full, and it's always an exciting time to recognize not only students, but also staff with accomplishments throughout the district. First up tonight, I'd like to invite Stefan Stoikov to come forward, and any administrators from North Central who are here, please join me. This is a solo recognition and one that we don't get to recognize very often. Stefan earned, listen to this, a perfect score on his SAT. We're very proud of him. We don't even have a level of recognition for this kind of thing. It happens so rarely. But when I heard about it, we certainly wanted to bring you in front of the board to celebrate this accomplishment with you. Do you want to share anyone who's with you tonight? Introduce them to us.
Just my mother.
Just my mother. Just my mother.
North Central administrators who create such outstanding students such as Stefan.
Linda Lawrence would like us to recognize that he's a Wesleyan graduate.
Love to take a picture with you, and then the board would like to share their congratulations as well. Next, while he is greeted by the school board, if the Wesleyan Wildcats 7th grade girls basketball team could come up, as well as coaches, administrators.
Well done.
We are celebrating tonight the Wesleyan Wildcats 7th grade girls basketball team who went undefeated their entire season. They also won the inaugural Marion County Girls Basketball Tournament for 7th grade and won the Washington Township Tournament. They did not experience a single loss all year. That's a huge accomplishment.
And Dr. Winton,
Yes, please.
this is not a member of the team, this is the coach.
Do you want to say anything about the season?
It was a great season, my first time coaching, and I'm so proud of these girls. It was a great way to start.
Absolutely. This is their one of their medals.
By the way, she's also a Wesleyan.
Yeah.
And North Central. And North Central.
And we'll send them all to your
I get to be an honorary member of the team, the girls just said, so I am very honored. Thank you very much. I will wear this with pride and hang it next to several other basketball championships we have from North Central in my office. So we'd love to take a picture if we can scoot in. We've got a certificate for each of you and the teammates who could not be here. And the microphone is now fixed. We'd just love to hear your name and what grade you're in.
Ricky Harris in 7th grade.
Savea Brockington, 7th grade.
Lexi Campbell, 7th grade.
Taylor Neal, 7th grade. Ariel Appleton, 7th grade.
Raina Baldwin, coach, graduated.
Thank you all so much. The board would like to shake each of your hands. Congratulations. Wow, nice job. Congratulations. Congrats. This is awesome. Thank you. While the board is greeting them, if the North Central Descants can come up. Hello, everyone. Maybe if we make two lines, the board just likes to see your faces while I'm talking about you. Will you ask Mr. Reddick to come down here? No, he can stay. It's okay, he can stay. I'll get you. No, it's okay. It's too complicated. This is a large group that we are celebrating. This is the North Central Descants, who has a long history of excellence and awards, and this year was no different. They are the 2014 ISSMA State Women's Show Choir Champions, led by their director, who I would like to give you the mic at the very end, so that you can share on behalf of this competitive season, on behalf of all of the contestants here. If you could pass that all the way down.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Ronick, and this is my first year being the choir director at North Central, and it was a thrill. These girls were awesome from the very beginning of the year and jumped in with me, even though I was brand new and filling some big shoes, as many of you know. But they were fantastic, and they won the state championship. It wasn't even close. They blew out the competition, and they really deserved it. And the special thing was they actually went first, which is a very challenging place to be in. So they were the first group of the day, and then everybody went after them, and they set the bar high and came out on top, which was a great thing to happen. So thanks for having us here tonight.
I know we have a large group, but I still would love to hear each name and grade. You just want to pass the mic.
Sophie Pierce, 11.
Mary Kate Hamilton, sophomore.
Daria Campbell, junior.
Linnea Holt, sophomore. Allison Sandoval, junior.
Grace Freeze, sophomore.
Hannah Thomas, senior.
Emily Hannon, junior.
Kim Sherrill, I'm one of the co-presidents and I'm a senior. I'm Grace Rowan, I'm a junior.
I'm Kat Jones, and I'm a senior.
I'm Maddie Lindley, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Emma Schlabach, and I'm a junior.
I'm Eleanor Serena, and I'm a junior.
I'm Sierra Smith, and I'm a junior.
I'm Katie Harrington, I'm a sophomore.
I'm Ben Mandresh, and I am a senior, and I'm the accompanist.
I'm Leah Brown, and I'm a sophomore.
Mackenzie Folks, sophomore. Molly Fogel, sophomore. Katie Siglio, senior. I'm Olivia Power, I'm a senior.
Erin Mulcahy, I'm a senior.
Caitlin Muldoon, I'm a senior.
Samantha Kelly, I'm a junior.
And if you could each introduce the family that came with you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you all to the supporters in the audience. I know that you're not only here to support, but you supported throughout the entire season, and that's a big role. So thanks to each of you. We would love to take a
Beautiful.
Mr. Oslander up next, and any administrators from Allisonville.
Well done.
Make it easy. Congratulations to you.
Great job. Was it fun? Yes. Well done. Congratulations. Well done. How are you? Congratulations. I know which way to do it. Here you go. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Feel pretty good?
How are you?
Well done.
I'm good. I'm looking forward to coming over to your place tomorrow morning.
Congratulations.
I tried well done.
Congratulations. This will be the first time. Well done. Congratulations.
Oh, good. Good. Thank God.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations. You got an unwrapped one? Congratulations. Good job. Well done. Now I have left? He's got
Congratulations again. And we are headed to Allisonville next to honor Mr. Steve Oslander. Steve was selected by PBS as one of America's top 100 most innovative educators. As a 2014 PBS Learning Media Digital Innovator, I had to practice that, he will receive national recognition, a year of professional development and training, and access to exclusive resources, and a membership into a robust professional learning community. If you don't know this name, all you have to do is go to our Facebook page for the Washington Township, and you'll see that Mr. Oslander has received numerous awards for his innovations using technology to support his teaching and learning in his classroom. So I'd love to pass the mic to you because this is very special, and share anything that you would like to about the award.
Okay. So, to be honest, I don't even know exactly what's in store for me this year, but with the PBS award, but I'm very excited. I'm very passionate about incorporating technology in my classroom, and happy to be here. My wife, Carol, is in the back. My mother-in-law, Karen Berman, who is a wonderful kindergarten teacher, legendary, at Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. Pomeranke.
Oh.
Tell what you did today. This is cool.
Okay. Today? Last summer, I traveled to Israel because I have a pen pal exchange with a class in Israel. And I met over the summer the pen pals. They're amazing, amazing kids. And I established an Edmodo group where my kids have real-time communication. It's in a safe platform with their pen pals in Israel. And the teacher, the English teacher from the school, came to Indianapolis. And and she stayed with us for a couple days. And a delegation of Israeli teachers came to Allisonville today, and my students broke into small groups and taught as a rotation the different skills that our tools, educational technology tools that we use, and the Israeli teachers are going to bring some of those skills back to their country, which is pretty neat. I'd be in action.
Mr. Grunlin. Next, we are honoring Rick Granlund from North Central High School, who is the 2014 Outstanding Band Master. Rick received the 2014 Outstanding Band Master Award from the Indiana Bandmaster Association. Rick has been Director of Bands for grades 6 through 12 Performing Arts Department Chair at North Central since 2004. Under his direction, North Central High School Wind Ensemble was the ISMA State Band Champions in 2006. 2007, 2009, 2010, and 2011. Congratulations to you.
Well, my family is here, my wife Candy and my daughter Elise and Laurel and my son Connor, and they're very understanding of a rather hectic schedule that we keep in performing arts. And my favorite thing about being recognized was an opportunity in a statewide setting to thank all my former and current students and all the teachers that I had, and to get North Central a little bit of recognition for all the great work that we've done here for 50 years. And I'm the 4th North Central band director to receive this award, which says a lot. And there have only been 6 of us, and one was only here for about 10 months. So Mr. Akers is a previous winner, Mr. Rhinesmith, and Mr. Gephardt. And so it's really a cool thing for me, and I'm a very lucky guy to teach the students I have every day. So thank you.
Congratulations. The last recognition, I'd like to pull the board members from their chairs and from behind the desk and ask them to come stand up here. See, they get a taste of their own medicine. Not too many superintendents get to work with a board that achieves exemplary board status. The purpose of the point system that leads to this award is to both individual and board recognition, is to encourage board members to engage in continuing education related to their roles as governing bodies over public school systems. Individual board members can earn 4 different levels of distinctions, level 1, 2, 3, and master board member, by accumulating points for various Indiana School Boards Association recognized activities. As each individual level is attained, the board members are awarded a lapel pin to proudly wear and other educational functions. In addition, they are recognized at the quarterly publication. In a majority of board attainments, a minimum level of 1 recognition is required. The board is considered an outstanding board if that is achieved. Once all board members have attained a minimum of level 1 and completed a board self-assessment, the board will be recognized as a master board, which our board has previously received. The highest level, however, of board recognition is an exemplary board. An exemplary board status is conferred upon second-year master boards that complete the designated criteria, including annual self-evaluations with the Director of Board Services. We have 2 new changes, President Turner achieving level 2, Dr. Hill achieving level 1, and the entire board receiving exemplary status. Just again, another marker of continued excellence from the board to students to staff, and we are very proud to have this board supporting Washington Township.
I just want to say that as a board, not only do we talk about how we can help the district be always continuing to improve, teachers, administrators, students, but we take it as a part of our job as board members to get better. And the one way to do that is through ISBA and going to their seminars, their sessions, learning more about how to be a better board member, how to be a better policymaker, et cetera. And so this is just an example of how, and I know Ms. Spanrati was here, same thing. We do spend time trying to make ourselves better to help the district be better. So congratulations to the rest of the board members and Dr. Whitson for helping us out as well.
And that's for you. And you get to shake my hand on your way back.
Take your seat.
We will get a picture when Mrs. Spanrati is back with us. All right, thank you, Dr. Whitson. Thanks, everyone. Now, as a board president, I get the ability to say that you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. But if you would like to leave, now's your chance. So we'll give you a second.
See y'all.
Congratulations, everyone.
Enjoy the nice weather. Congratulations, sir.
Except for Mr. Licata.
Sunshine and 60 will do a lot for the psyche. Sunshine and 60 will do a lot
Should
for
get
the
another
psyche.
plaque, though.
Yeah, because it's a different.
Yeah.
Okay.
They said another plaque is on order, so.
Okay. Oh, they will.
Yeah, they already ordered it. They just didn't have it. Did we miss somebody? Dr. Whitson, did we miss somebody? Did you miss somebody?
Marcia's phone died. I just she wrote a note to Tom and said,
Distinguished teacher awards.
So he texted you the note. So were we supposed to recognize those two young ladies?
They used to have the advertisement in the paper. They kind of collected a lot of that together. It was something we did once a year in the Simpson.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to leave them out.
Thanks. I was trying to think. Yeah. They'll be here all night.
That was my thing. I did that. I originated that, and you know, we did that.
All right, board, if we're ready to continue. Well, next item on the agenda is item D, superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woodson.
Yes, you have lots of support documents in your board docs to go along with these announcements, but the first is something that we're pretty proud of here in Washington Township, which is offering school choice to all families in and out of the district, but specifically in the district. We have limited choice for our elementary and middle schools, and I just wanted to share some preliminary data on our elementary limited choice based on some questions that have come up. We also have the 2014 ENL Summer School kind of program framework. We're taking a little bit different approach this year, and I certainly wanted you to know about that framework for our summer programming. Also, I put in there a great summary of the legislative actions and changes that occurred in this 2014 session. I think it was very informative, and we received this last week, and as the session closed and as we're receiving updates, we are working on all of the implications that may mean for policy or guidelines or things that we are doing here in the district. But I thought that was a great summary to share. Also, at the NSBA, the National School Boards Association conference that several of us attended, we got hard copies, but I also put an electronic copy in here of some research behind MYP. This is new research from IB, and I think it's important as we do a district-wide program that we stay informed of the research, which is very supportive of the work that we are doing. Also, our very own Mr. Ostrike, who was here and is gone, has put together a recruiting brochure, and I wanted you to see that. The efforts he is taking to get us the highest qualified applicants, regardless of the position, are extraordinary. I just made a personal phone call and an email to a really high-flying applicant and made a letter of intent, and the graduation date is not even until December of this year. And he was heavily sought after, and because of Mr. Ostrike's recruiting efforts, it looks like we are going to be able to get him in our teaching ranks sometime in 2015. But I just wanted to show you kind of the highlights of that flyer. Not every district can highlight such wonderful things on their flyer about coming into Washington Township, and I think he's doing a great job there. Next, I included the hot off the press state data on teacher effectiveness in school grades. That was recently released, I think, last week by the Department of Education. There's been some media coverage about it, but I wanted to give you some of the data from the Department of Education direct. We've educated you on the information specific to Washington Township. That is statewide data. I also wanted to keep you abreast of Common Core information. The Teaching and Learning Division just worked on some talking points as far as with all of these Common Core changes. Board has asked lots of questions, great questions about it. What are the implications for Washington Township, and just keeping you informed there. Also, our very own Allison Smith puts together an IB bulletin, which is kind of like an IB newsletter just for Washington Township. Always has a tremendous amount of great information, and so I am sharing that with you as well. The last little announcement is about the June 2nd year-end celebration for staff. That was moved due to the snow days, and so I have a save the date in there for you, and we're excited to have that celebration at the end of the year, recognizing staff from all over the district. That's all I have.
Are there any questions, Board? Dr. Woodson, just so I can say this, I was going to ask the question about the ENL summer school, but you answered it because this is a new approach.
Yes.
Okay, and it looked like it was something that
We've
was.
reviewed past and talked about some of the challenges, some of the success pieces, but tried to piece together a new approach to making sure that that's the most effective time with those students.
Great, thank you. No questions. Item number E, academic focus. Dr. Farrell.
Good evening. Tonight's topic is the gifted and talented academic achievement focus, and my purpose for meeting with you is to share achievement data for high-ability students enrolled in Compass and address questions that you provided, which included, number one, what is the current demographic data on Compass students? Number two, what efforts have been done to improve the racial makeup of the students? Number three, what does transition to middle school look like for these students? And number four, how do we monitor the progress on students who are already so high academically? The second slide reveals the data showing the percentage of representation with the various groups. And this has been collected over the past 13 years. The general findings show that overall there's been a gradual increase in the percentage of students who are enrolled in Compass who are African American and multiracial. And the greatest increase in the percentage of these two categories was in the year 2010 and 11. This particular year is important to remember as I go forward with the revealing what have been some of the efforts that we've tried to improve our rates. Some of the efforts of the racial makeup of students included changing the identification process. Up until 2010-11, testing consisted of two phases. First, a nonverbal measure known as the Naglieri test, or the NNAT, was administered to all second grade students. The original intent of this test was to capture more students who represented underrepresented populations. Second, those students who scored at the 91st percentile or above on the NNAT were further assessed using an aptitude achievement measure called the SAGES, that represents the screening assessment for gifted elementary students. Those students scoring at the 92nd percentile or higher were selected to participate in the program. It was about this same time that the district started using the Ames Web Literacy and STAR Math assessments as benchmark testing for grades 1 through 5. This added more teacher and student time for assessment. Seeing only a slight increase in the total makeup of the percentage of students of color since using the NNAT, we decided that it was not serving its purpose. And so we stopped using it altogether and relied on using the data from Ames Web and STAR Math to form a pool of students who would potentially be identified high ability. This, in turn, enabled us to reduce one test. The students who scored at the 75th percentile or higher on either the Ames Web or STAR Math were administered the SAGES. We continued to use that. And those scoring at the 92nd percentile or higher on the SAGES and receiving strong teacher and parent nomination were selected. As shared before, we changed the process in 2010-11 by no longer relying on data from the first test, the NNAT, to determine who should be recommended for further testing. And with this change, we saw our greatest increase in the percentage of students of color identified as high ability. Since that time, the percentage of students has remained pretty constant until this year we dropped slightly. How are we continuing to improve the racial makeup of students? We again are refining the identification process under the guidance of the DOE. DOE has strongly recommended to us that we must have a process for identifying students grades K through 12, and we must identify the students at younger ages versus waiting until grade 2. The Indiana definition states that a high ability student is one who performs at or shows the potential to perform at an achievement level. The important phrase there, it says or, it doesn't say and. And we are expected to identify students who show the potential or demonstrate outstanding performance in math or reading. So you see what's happened is you can identify a student as either general intellectual or high ability reading or high ability math or a combination thereof. Districts must use 3 measures, a norm reference measure, an achievement norm reference measure, and a qualitative measure in their ID process. The process does not need to occur each year, however, for the students because it's time consuming. We can have targeted years where students such as K and 2 before middle school and high school be reevaluated. I mentioned earlier that we use the SAGES as our measure. We are replacing the SAGES this year with an ability measure called the Cognitive Test of Abilities, known as the COGAT. The COGAT is considered to be more reliable and less biased. There again, anyone who scores at the 92nd percentile or higher will be identified as general intellectual. For the next group of students, those scoring between the 80th and 91st percentile will be administered an achievement test called the Iowa test. Those scoring at the 92nd percentile or higher on the reading and or math will be identified high ability for that particular area. So you see what we've done is instead of thinning out, we're trying to add to the possibilities. Finally, we'll collect qualitative data for students who just missed the cutoff, in other words, whose scores are within the standard error measure, and descriptive data in the form of work samples, writing samples will be used. In moving on from this question, it is important to note that the demographics for Compass does not necessarily reveal the makeup of all students have been identified as high ability. Some of the students of high ability whose parents have elected to keep the children in their home school, the data for those students are not included in this. The representation of these students should also be included to get a full understanding of what we look like. I will talk about this some more after sharing the achievement data on the next slide. This slide shows the 2012 and 2013 ISTEP passing rates for Compass students using school-by-school comparisons. Generally, Compass scores in the English language arts and math are excellent, with the majority of students attaining Pass Plus ratings. Pass Plus rates in math tend to be higher than the English language arts rates. In 2012, Grade 3 data reveals that all of the students in all 3 schools acquired the Pass Plus rating in math. And the percentage earning a Pass Plus status in English Language Arts in all 3 schools was usually the highest at Fox Hill. In 2013, Allisonville reported the highest percentage of students earning the Pass Plus rating, but it should be noted that 100% of the Fox Hill 4th grade students earned a Pass Plus rate. This analysis does not include the percentage of passing rates for students who have remained in their home schools. We should also compare the rate of growth of the students identified as high ability from underrepresented groups compared to their Caucasian peer. Also, I-STEP performance does not seem to be a good performance measure for students in Compass because, frankly, it ceilings out, and also it's a minimum requirement. We must identify specific measures that will be used routinely to monitor the growth versus relying on I-STEP results. We intend to continue to refine the identification process by adding the measures that are required of us from DOE. We will also continue to carefully take a look at the data to understand fully the impacts of the program that it may be having on the student versus the curriculum and instruction that's offered in the other home schools. Bear with me. Here we go. As for transition to middle school, this is pretty self-explanatory. The students participate in middle school visits along with their peers. They have the opportunity to participate in Eagle Quest, Falcon Quest, and the Wildcat Safari. West Lane counselors have met with students in small groups at their elementary school. There's typically a change in the homework policy, the final grading period for all 5th grade students, and we also share the student performance data on the students that we have collected specifically with the middle school counselors. As for progress monitoring, we rely on benchmark assessments, growth data, and informal assessments. At this time, we do not have anything unique specific for students with high ability. That's probably something that should be looked at very carefully. Some of the research that I reviewed, there's a lot of discussion about this. Some revealing the fact that, frankly, I don't know if there is such a measure that's considered to be reliable at this time. Out of levels testing is considered, but you have to be careful with that because you don't truly assess the different levels of the students then. So in closing, next steps that I think should occur is we should establish a data review committee. This committee should analyze performance data representative of all students identified as high ability versus Compass only. We need to work with our K-1 teachers closely in recognizing potential, not necessarily in the form of academic achievement. Some examples of this would include the rate of learning, the language acquisition, using qualitative measures such as products or portfolio assessments, and rating scales. Last, I think we should reinstate the broad-based planning committee to serve as an advisory committee for the director regards high ability programming. I think there's lots of opportunities here to also work closely with K-1 teachers and start looking at developing the leadership skills of the students. Examples would include having students serve older mentors, working with the younger students. I think too, it would be equally advantageous for us to start working with some specific parent groups, such as those that represent the English language learner. I think those families do not understand the system, and I think they're reluctant to have the children join. Okay? With that in mind, I'm sorry I have a bad cold, but I'll certainly address questions that you might have.
Mr. Kite.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. I have a question, and it's related to a question I asked you earlier, but slightly more general than what I had asked you earlier about this and your presentation, which I think is very interesting. It brings together a lot of points that I know the board's asked about and administration's presented to us in the past, so thank you for that. Can you talk a bit about the significance of IB and everything that the district's undergoing now as far as students maybe remaining at their home schools and what exactly is likely to happen with IB for these
I think what IB has done for the children in our district is phenomenal. I think it creates opportunities for all students to receive inquiry-based learning through project learning, what have you. I think it would be wise on our part also to take a look at the data for the year 2011-12, because that's the year, as you know, that we worked very, very hard as a district to become IB authorized. And some of the commitment with that is to eliminate multi-age groupings or multi-age classes, if you will, specifically for Compass, and in turn rely on more grade level participation. So I think it would be curious to look at the data. Did it make a difference? Is it making a difference? I think we have to be cautious, however, to make sure we're asking the right questions. It may not be necessarily, is it the passing rate of ISTEP improved, but we may want to look more closely at how has the writing improved? How are the students' capabilities to ask higher order questions improved? Things along those lines. I certainly don't have all the answers.
Just a quick footnote in regard to my question too. I would love, and I love all the information you brought to us tonight. I'd love at some point down the road to see the data on, the other demographic, obviously, that really matters, which is the free and reduced lunch percentages and the socioeconomic end of it, and then also see something in the future about students who are remaining at their home school. I think that it may be hard to quantify, and I'm sure not everybody tells you that they're making that election or where there's a choice. But.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned the free and reduced populations. The experts advise us not to forget those children as well. It's very apparent that we've got some responsibilities to improve regards the populations of different students of color, but we also have those that are from poor impoverished backgrounds.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you, and I look forward to hearing the report back on some of the ideas that you had mentioned you're looking to do in the future.
Mm-hmm. I have great people helping.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. Appreciate it. Board, if you will indulge me, what I'd like to do before we're coming up on our public comment section, but we have some students here from Greenbrier that were here for Playworks, but Playworks is at the end of our agenda.
Oh, yeah.
So if I could have them, I think they wanted to say something, correct? They wanted to, so if they'll just go to the podium and then we'll do this and let them introduce themselves. That way they don't have to stay here till we leave.
They can get home and do their 20 minutes of reading.
Oh, there you go.
10 minutes of math facts.
Oh, you already did it, okay.
You already did it.
All right.
So if you just let them introduce themselves, that'd be good too.
Yeah, we just want to introduce, and then also Karen Berman is a kindergarten teacher, and Mr. Gatlin, so they're also here to support us. But I want to make sure these guys get home to do what they need to do. So introduce yourself, your grade, and if you have anything quick to say.
Hi, I'm Jada, and I'm in 5th grade.
I'm Caprice, and I'm in 4th grade.
In Playworks, we learn how to be better leaders, and we stay after school sometimes and learn more games with Coach Alicia.
We learn how to be honest and show integrity and cooperate in games even if we don't want to play it.
Thank you so much. We just want to make sure they get home. But thank you, girls. You're awesome.
We'll do the full info item on it.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Yes.
As I said earlier, this is the section of our agenda where it's open for public comment. So if there are any members of the public that would like to address the board tonight, now's the time. Okay, seeing none, we move on to to item G, our first action items for tonight, the approval of the preliminary bond resolution. Mr. Licata.
Mr. Turner, members of the board, Dr. Woodson, in your board folder you have Exhibit A, preliminary bond resolution. This is the first step in issuing a $2 million general obligation bond of 2014 for the school district. This has become kind of a routine thing that we do twice in the even number of years and then once in the odd number of years. So this is a year where I'll bring one of these issues back to you again in the fall. So we'll have one in the spring, one in the fall this year. This is the first one. Again, a preliminary bond resolution for your approval this evening. A $2 million GO bond in the district. This is the same principal amount that we've been doing for the last few years. If you had a chance to look at the schedule I sent you, it shows where as one bond issue is paid off, a new one rolls on the following year. So this is never an increase in the actual tax levy. It's just basically maintaining the amount that debts that we service annually at a steady level of about $3 million each year. The impact of a new issue, again, is not really a true impact on the taxpayers. It's already been built into the rate over the years, but it does come out to a little under about 1.7, 1.8 cents as part of the tax rate for each $2 million GO bond issue that we have. And what that means in terms of a taxpayer who owns, for instance, in Washington Township, say a $100,000 home, comes out to about $9 a year. So it's not a significant amount of debt service on an individual basis. And again, it's basically maintaining the steady debt service amount that we've had in the past. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Kite.
Just one very anal question. The exhibit, the actual resolution itself, uses the number 2014 in the A. Is that because there are going to be two?
Yeah, there'll be a 2014B in the fall.
That's what I thought. I just was trying to refresh my own recollection.
Yeah, I only use the A or the B or when it's an even number year, we're going to have two issues.
Right, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kite. Mr. Deswanner.
Thank you, Mr. Licata, for providing that information and the refresher. I appreciated it. And I just wanted to clarify, too, it did increase back, I think it was 2 years ago, when we went to the third general obligation bond because of the retirement bonds due to the changing interpretation from Department of Local Government
That was
Finance, right?
about 3 years ago. 2012, I think we did one in 2011. Then we did two in 2012.
Right.
One in 13. We'll do two in 14.
Gotcha.
So,
Perfect, thanks.
And just with the president's permission, one additional question?
Yes, Mr. Kite.
Yeah, could you, just for the benefit of the public, again, assuming that people listen to our meetings after our meetings or what have you, could you just refresh the public's recollection on the purpose of a general obligation bond? What
Sure,
it's used for?
Yes, general obligation bond will provide capital for the district to purchase equipment for technology or other instructional needs in the district, as well as routine maintenance, facility improvements, building equipment, things of that nature.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Other questions, board?
If there are not, Mr. President, I would move that the board approve or give its approval to the preliminary bond resolution as presented by Mr. Licata.
It's been moved and second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Licata. Next action item is number 2 is approval of agreement with Indiana Online Academy. Mr. Doss.
President Turner, members of the board, and Dr. Woodson, I'm here this evening seeking approval of an agreement between the Indiana Online Academy and MSDWT. North Central would like to pilot a summer school option. The Indiana Online Academy will provide another summer school option to address things such as graduation concerns, provide families with additional flexibility during the summer, and provide students with an opportunity to get ahead for those students who'd like to take additional opportunity or different classes during the school year. The class of 2013 had 21 seniors who did not graduate because they were 1 or 2 credits shy of meeting the graduation requirements. This option that I'm here tonight to talk about will hopefully provide an opportunity for other students who may fall into that category in the future to make sure that they do indeed graduate on time. The current summer school creates some barriers, as I said, for families, taking vacations, traveling, being part of different camps and whatnot. In this situation, that's a hard piece because North Central has, as you know, 2 3-week sessions, so that's 6 weeks out of the summer. And because our calendar's modified a little bit, that leaves just a few windows for parents. So this will hopefully provide some flexibility to students and families so they kind of have their cake and eat it too. In addition, this comes at no cost to North Central. The entire cost, the tuition, is roughly $225 per course. that piece will be reimbursed by the state, just like they reimburse us for current summer school. So it should not be a cost to North Central. There is a $50 technology fee that would be passed on to families. And really, that doesn't differ much from the summer school offerings that North Central has now. Those courses are anywhere from $8 to $25. So it's not a significant piece, and it, again, provides a lot of flexibility for families. In terms of what courses we selected, I provided you with a list of courses, and a lot of thought and consideration went into those courses. And in that situation, many of the courses selected are courses that for whatever reason, kids have failed in the past. And obviously they get into that senior year and maybe failed an English 9 class, English 10 course, and you know, trying to fit that in with English 12 and all the other things that you need to graduate is sometimes is quite a challenge. So hopefully that we can address that piece. But in addition, if you notice, there are no science classes. Okay, the North Central administration and teachers felt like, you know, most of our classes, science classes, we want to be lab-based classes, and obviously hard to do a lab online. Okay, so obviously doesn't make sense. Physical education, you know, a lot of school districts have gone down that road, but at the same time, an online physical education course doesn't involve physical activity. Okay, again, just a philosophical difference. Online speech course, but you don't have to give a speech. You know, so some kind of interesting pieces there that make a lot of sense in terms of why the North Central administration chose not to allow those courses. We're looking at this as a pilot with the idea that if things go well this summer, then we'd hopefully would look to expand that next year. A question was raised regarding rigor, and I think that all of these courses meet Indiana state standards, okay, and obviously that's the case, but that doesn't necessarily speak to rigor. I think ultimately the rigor is driven by a teacher, okay? I can teach Biology 1 and another teacher can teach Biology 1, but the level of rigor of that course is going to be driven by the teacher, you know, not necessarily by the standards of the coursework. So I don't think that's a problem any more than what we establish as long as the Indiana state standards are involved. But that's kind of the background. I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Mr. Kite?
Thank you, Mr. Doss. My question, I'm not opposed to technology or technological uses, and I love the idea of pilot programs because I think that's how we grow, that's how we try things on rather than just talking about them academically and going from there. And I'll be interested to see how the rigor piece plays out. I certainly don't disagree that it depends on the teacher. I never really know what you're looking at when you have an online class as far as the teacher. And so I really wanted to ask you, and you've spoken to it a little bit in your comments, about how this has been vetted so far. Obviously, you've had North Central administration and at least some faculty look at it.
Yes, they've had an opportunity to look at the courses and whatnot. Much like, you know, we currently have NovaNet, which is an online platform that we offer students for credit recovery. And again, some students choose to take a NovaNet course to even put themselves in a better place for graduation. So it's very similar in terms of the content. And I will tell you, having a daughter who experienced a pretty significant concussion last year, had to drop a couple classes, and who took 2 courses online, it was a struggle. She's typically a very good student, but it was a struggle to get that same level of grade when you don't have any support of an outstanding teacher. So that piece was quite rigorous for her, and I think she's probably a typical student in that regard.
And it's related, on a related note, are there resources for students who do take these classes, whether it's through somebody that's provided by the online entity or the township?
Actually, there is. There's an online piece that, I mean, there's an opportunity for them to interact with the group that oversees this. But it's not like an office hours kind of scenario. They can't get additional assistance, but if they're having trouble with technology, they can do that. They oftentimes, depending on enrollment, they will actually look to hire some of our teachers to proctor exams and to provide some assistance if necessary.
Thank you.
Mr. Deswanner had a question?
Yes, echo Mr. Kite's comments, and thank you for your thoughts on rigor and
Sure.
whether we think this is equivalent to a North Central class. It'll be interesting to see what staff feels as we have students go through it.
Sure.
But I'm curious too, evidently this is a service, the Indiana Online Academy, that's available to Washington Township regardless of whether or not we have membership at CISC.
Absolutely. Correct.
And there's no price difference?
No, not that I'm aware of. It's kind of interesting because a lot of their professional development, for example, there is a member price and a non-member price. Although I will say even in that situation, it was kind of nominal in terms of the difference between being a member and not.
And then at this point in time, we're looking at offering this as a pilot during summer school, but if I read the agreement correctly, we could make this opportunity available to students at any time. And
We could.
so that
Correct.
would be a decision that North Central would decide if and when there might be a circumstance like your daughter's that would warrant
There would be.
having this kind of an option.
I wouldn't envision that happening during the school year just because the NovaNet option is, we purchased the NovaNet licenses. And so for the students, there's a $25 processing fee cost. So obviously not the same piece. And during the school year, we wouldn't receive the level of reimbursement that we do from the state. You know?
Okay, Dr. Hill.
Yeah. Relative to where students would access the online, would this be home, school, library? Is it just kind of an open?
It's wide open. It's obviously an online platform, and so
Okay.
they can access it wherever. I don't know at this time that the North Central plans on having technology available for this. Now, I suppose if someone were to approach us and say, I'd really like access to this during the time that North Central's open during the summer, we could probably make those arrangements. But obviously, public library would be an option, and most families, have online access somewhere.
Any other questions?
Comment.
Mr. Kite, go ahead, comment.
Yeah, that's not a question. I really do think the, kind of keeping the board in the loop on how this goes will be
Sure.
very important. I think it is something that kind of touches upon policy as well at a certain point. It's nice to think about the township giving its sanction to it, as Mr. Deswanner points out, whether it's available independently or not. I would assume there'd be more usage if we say, yeah, this is an option.
Sure.
And it wouldn't be the repetitive questions all the time by folks asking. So, given that,
Great.
And Mr. Dawson, and I would assume that North Central is not the first school to use the Indiana Online Academy.
No,
So there has to be
we're-
some support or data saying whether or not this is beneficial to students or whether it's working, if it's meeting the standards, et cetera.
And it's my understanding that most of the schools that have gone down this road previously are still providing this. As you know, a lot of high schools don't offer summer school, so this has been a vehicle by which they can offer courses for their community. But no, we've had an opportunity to talk to a number of schools. Mr. Brannigan obviously spoke to a number of principals based on their experience and felt like that this wasn't a huge risk.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Oh,
I-
Dr. Hill.
one more. With basically the list of the courses that would be available, and you've got a column on estimated number, we just basically going on the number of kids we've had year to year that are a course or two away, is that?
That was driving that, although it wasn't real scientific, was we had to provide
Yeah.
them with some estimates, and so we were looking at a little bit of history, but again, not so granular that we could say we think we're pretty close.
Right, okay. That's it, thank you.
Good. All right, no question?
President, I'd move approval of the agreement with the Indiana Online Academy as presented by Mr. Doss.
Second?
It's been moved in second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Doss. Our next action item is item number 3, second reading and adoption of policies as listed in board agenda item 3.
God bless you all sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
Sure how to take that, Mr. Deswan. Watching a committee draft.
Thank
Such
you,
fun work.
President Turner, members of the board, and Dr. Woodson. Do bring second reading policies back for your consideration this evening. I did take the liberty of emailing you prior to the meeting as well. You may have been able to see that regarding some of the guidelines that would go along with this. If you recall from the previous meeting, there was some suggestions about moving some of the detailed language from policy to guidelines, and made that attempt and shared that with you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. We'll draw some specific attention to the student activities policy. Did have an opportunity to gain some more feedback from you prior to this meeting, as well as speaking to Mr. Brannigan about some potential clarifying language prior to your potential adoption of that policy. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Kite.
Just one question, I guess, to start, or a comment, really. I guess it is a comment. I don't have a problem with these particular policies, with moving some substantial portions of the policy to administrative guidelines. And never have a problem with considering that as a possibility. I will say that I don't see this as precedent for going through all of the policies that this board and the board has previously constituted have spent a great deal of time on that may be unique, for example, to Washington Township, and moving the board away from what is essentially a policy-making body to something other than that. So I'm just making a point that's important to me individually, that I think these are good changes, and I don't think the board should necessarily be about what's kept in Closet A and Closet B.
Right.
And a lot of much more important considerations than that. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but so I don't have a problem with these, and I think it's a great job of moving those certain provisions out of this to make it look more like board policy.
Thank you.
Any other board member, any comment or question?
I have a question about a specific policy.
Sure, yeah.
And this is policy 2430 with regard to district activities.
Right.
And the question I had first, I had two points to ask Dr. Millen about and ask the board to consider as we look at the second readings. The first, under the high school eligibility, which is, we're missing our page 2 of 2s. So it's on the first page. Right under high school. It seemed to me that, and Mr. Doss or Dr. Milliman can clarify, but as I understood it, we were requiring a 2.0 for eligibility for each season. And I thought it would be helpful to clarify that rather than just saying initial eligibility, because some could read that to mean your freshman year or the first time you played a sport or participated in activity. So I would propose putting the word initial before eligibility, and then a word something like season after the extracurricular activity or athletic, so that it's clear that this eligibility applies to your participation in basketball
Right.
or descants or whatever.
And to follow up on that, in my conversation with Mr. Brannigan, actually, it'll make it just a tad wordier, but actually season by season might actually be more preferable from his standpoint. That way it's not confusing. That way it's
The clarity.
right. And then when it comes to other activities, such as plays and things of that nature, there's some language following that section you were referring to, talking about the administrative requirements established by the administration, and some implication that if it's a fall play, season by season would apply at the next drama season or play or activity. And with that administrative, discretion in a way of creating those requirements, working with the sponsors and making sure that we're clear that as it compares to athletics, it would be the same expectation. So I think he was comfortable working around with that, working with that new language.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Deswaner, you want initial, where'd you want the word initial?
It's actually in there, I think.
That's what I'm saying,
I think
it's in there.
Yep.
So I didn't know if you has another place you wanted initial eligibility.
Right. No, I
That was the place,
apologize.
that was the location, okay.
It's the fun part of, I highlighted that word because
Okay.
I wanted to clarify why we should include season
Okay.
afterward.
I thought I missed something.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions?
This,
Matt, if I could just make one real quick point. Just because you're about gathering consensus too, I know we haven't voted yet, but I
Sure.
agree with Mr. Deswaner's suggestions on that. I think it makes it clearer, so, and if you've already vetted it, that's great.
And then the only other addition I had to the initial drafts that were sent to the board was under the middle school section, and that was replacing the language about requirements established by district administration with the word superintendent.
Yes.
And we, just knowing the history of how we've had some discrepancy between buildings, that I thought it would make sense and make clear that the idea was it was a district-wide requirement and not a principal-by-principal requirement, so.
Yeah, and I think we're comfortable with that. Absolutely.
Anything else? Okay. I entertain a motion if.
Mr. President, pardon me. I move that we approve the second reading and adoption of policies, let me make sure I'm reading the right ones, 1662, 3362, 4362, 5717.
5517.
I'm sorry?
55.
55, I'm sorry. 17, anti-harassment. 8390, animals on school property. 5750, defense and indemnification.
8750.
What am I? I even
back
have my
back.
glasses on. No, I have to take them off to read. 8750, defense and indemnification of board members and employees. 8120, volunteers. And 2430, district sponsored activities and clubs as discussed this evening.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Milliman.
You're welcome.
Action item number 4, first reading of policies 3419.01, 4419.01, privacy protections of self-funded health group health plans, and 0151.1, Board of Finance of Metropolitan School District of Washington Township. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, President Turner. 0151.01 is not a policy we currently have in our 0100 series. Did review this with Mr. Licata. He agreed it would be a good idea in his view to add this. I think there has been some press around this. It's very interesting how that actually happens just in making sure that public entities follow the procedures. This is outlined in law. This is outlined in Indiana Code. You follow this. You constitute the Board of Finance every year by routine. However, putting it in the policy, if it ever gets called into question, this is quite a simple addition. This is not the first Neola policy of this, but it is a revision. We just did not currently have it. Mr. Licata and I sat down and did go through this policy for your information. The second policy is related to some new legislation around the privacy protections and protected health information. Some of the new Indiana Code requires districts to identify a security official as well as a privacy official. This outlines that well. And just as a point of reference, I shared in your notes that one of the attorneys from Bose McKinney and Evans, who, as you know, is the board's attorney as well, or a firm. Actually, you may know Mr. Hamilton from his work with Affordable Care. He's very knowledgeable in that area. He actually drafted this policy regarding that. So as an aside, I thought you might find that interesting, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, or at least attempt to. This is a little bit out of my area of expertise, but I'll take my questions back to my colleagues.
Okay, Mr. Kite.
That makes asking the questions that much more fun. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
No, actually, I have a very simple one, and it's, I guess, more of a comment. Number one, if Mr. Licata wants something, it's hard to say no. So if he also likes the idea of having a policy that helps to clarify the whole Board of Finance annual ritual, that's one good reason. Another good one I can think of is that although we don't necessarily, you never know who the board president's going to be, and it's a nice thing for them to have at their fingertips as well. So I can see several reasons. So I guess that's not really a question on that. It's more of a comment, but thank you.
Mr. Deswanner.
Two easy comments or suggestions, and I'll throw this out for board discussion as well as Dr. Milliman's consideration. On the 0151 policy on Board of Finance, I think it'd be great if we included the Indiana Code citation at the bottom like we do with most board policies.
I will tell you, I actually extracted this from the 0150 series. We typically have all the code citations for the 0150 series at the end, but rather than confuse the board in thinking that we needed to look at the entire 0150 series, I extracted it for your viewing this evening. We could bring the code to you if you like, but it would be at the end of the 0150 policy itself.
Knowing how long that is and how many different things it covers, because it was also a little looking at the table of contents, it was kind of strange where we decided to put it, but I could see
Right.
the difficulty you had in.
Yeah, actually, that was a Neola decision. I had nothing to do,
Yeah.
that's where they inserted. I just pulled it out so that we didn't have to weed through 40 pages of 015.
Well, given its unique placement, we may want to consider just in our
Sure.
own policies, putting the IC citation right there.
I don't know why it would hurt.
Because if we put it at the end, it gets in such a long list that you don't know it relates to that.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering about future boards that might look at that section's location there and say, it seems to be a strange part to put it under organizational meeting. But we do it every year at our organizational meeting, so that part of it makes sense to me. But knowing that it's also a statutory requirement could be helpful, I think. So
Be very, very simple to do.
the attorneys may tell us there's a reason not to, but that would just be a layman's suggestion.
I don't think it's ever a bad idea to cite the code that goes along with it.
I think it's in general, and I don't think poor Dr. Milliman, with all the work he has to do, I don't think he should have to go through the whole set of policies and remove all the statutes, but I think in general,
Yeah.
it's the way you like to read things. You like to have the statute closest to what
Right
it
there,
pertains to.
sure.
So.
And then secondly, on the other policy, the privacy policy, two comments. The first is I noted that we identified specific job titles.
Yes.
And as I recall, we generally in our policy, board policy, try to avoid doing that because those things can change much more frequently than policy might, or more frequently than it gets reviewed. And so I didn't know if you had already had that discussion
Yeah.
and decided there's
This-
really
this
no
was
way
either a-
around it,
right.
or this is statutorily
This
required.
is either going to be a name or a position. And so we went with the position in this case. Our benefits coordinator has been a longstanding position in the district, does deal on a daily basis with this issue, seems a logical person. The original Neola version had just the privacy official. We did, do I say that? Yes, privacy official, make sure I said that right. We actually inserted with some counsel, from our council, the assistant position. That gives, the policy and the Indiana code actually gives, which is a little bit interesting, gives our benefits coordinator the discretion to write rules that would allow the human resources director to have the information, who, as you know, is her direct supervisor. But she's the logical person, or that position is a logical person. We wanted to make sure we included HR director in there because he does need to have some of those sensitive conversations with staff and allows that to take place. The security official may seem a little odd that that would be our director of technology. This is a relatively large urban district. I think we'll probably continue, barring any very strange circumstance of having someone that needs to be in charge of our technology infrastructure. And as you know, he is the position, or he is currently a he, that oversees the policy regarding all of the security of this. So that's the logical person as well. And that was vetted through council as well.
And then the second thought on that policy had to do with having a separate indemnification policy. We've already got a separate policy for indemnification for all employees, and I was just curious why we felt we needed to put a separate one in specifically for this policy.
I will ask that question. I don't have a good answer for that right now, other than the fact that perhaps we do with that policy. Maybe it's referring to the current indemnification that you're referring to, unless I'm reading it.
But it didn't refer to it. It
Okay.
actually has a separate, that looks fairly similar, but it could differ. I didn't
I see.
compare the two.
Yeah.
And to me, it seemed to make sense that if we've got one global policy, can't we just rely on that?
Could be.
And that way, there would be one place if we need to change it due to legal changes in the future, it applies to everything.
Yeah, it seems like a Chuck Rubright question. He'd be able to say, no, you need double indemnification for this person, or the general one
Sure.
is enough.
I'll write that in the margin and find out, but you're right, if we can only change it in one place, if we ever have to tinker with that language again.
And just going back to the title question real quickly, I know that often we say superintendent or designee, and obviously the benefit of doing that, which I think we've done in other policies, is if and when you need to change titles for reorganizations, I could see a table getting created of all the policies that reference the superintendent or designee, and then the superintendent could have a table that identifies who all these people are that have these responsibilities per policy, and it could be changed anytime you need to change a title, as opposed to having to worry about finding where in policy it needs to go
Right.
forward, meetings and all of that. So, just a thought.
Mr. Kite.
The counterbalance to that question, I'm not saying Mr. Deswanner is wrong at all, but the counterbalance, just the other side of the coin, is that on certain questions or issues, and I'm not saying I have a list in my mind of what they are, it would seem to be beneficial to the public or to staff to know right away and to have a policy point toward the person. I heard what you're saying, and I also like the idea in general of giving the, as you say, the superintendent the opportunity to make those changes. But if the township has thought it's kind of a long-standing way of having that person or those persons handle this, I think sometimes it's good for, as I say, a staff member to pick up a policy if they want to and read it and know right away, as opposed to, because the superintendent or their designee, again, while I like the discretion, I think on occasion, at a certain point, you read the policy, you go, my God, maybe I should just call the superintendent. So,
The initial conversation had been that this is one of those rare cases where you need to be a little bit more specific in who has access to this information. We know that this wouldn't be the case, but if it's a designee situation, then theoretically, Dr. Woods can say, I hereby designate you to now be able to get this information without a whole lot of, trouble, if you will. So I think this is one, there's just some new legislation around this. It's tightening it, tightening the whole security around protected health information. So that was just our initial conversation with council on it.
And if you want further thought on it, obviously this is a first reading, so if we think there's some
Absolutely.
other things, we can send it to Dr. Milliman.
unless there are other questions by board members, I would move that the board approve for first reading with the change noted by Mr. Deswanner to policy 0151.1, Board of Finance of the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township, adding the legal citation. I would move that the board approve for first reading policies 3419.01, 44.19.01, privacy protections of self-funded group health plans, and 0151.1, as I've previously indicated, and as described by Dr. Milliman.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Milliman. Action item number 5, approval to submit the Avid implementation agreement, Dr. Milliman. Yes, you may as well just get ready.
Thank you, President Turner. I'm standing in for Ms. Smith. I didn't want to actually have her endure my policy presentation this evening, but I would be happy to bring any additional questions you may have. As a precursor to this as well, I did suggest that, or would propose that this might be a good academic focus topic for one of our future meetings in the near future. In speaking to Ms. Smith about Avid, she is working on some presentation material about our current Avid program and gathering some recording, some video, et cetera, of some of our current students and items about our program that you might find interesting and might talk about the success of the program in the district. So I think that would be a good opportunity for you to learn from that. Just as a few things to learn about the program prior to requesting to approve for the continued contract. We currently have 532 students in our district that are participating in Avid. Attendance rates for our Avid students are currently higher than the non-Avid students. Avid strategies are implemented district-wide in all 3 middle schools, and therefore impacting all students as well as North Central, as you know. 39 of our 43 seniors took either the SAT or ACT, and 29 out of the 43 students applied and were accepted to a 4-year college. You may also recall we had some presentations last year. So this is a year-old data that we had over $1 million in offered scholarships to Avid students, and many of our students continue to matriculate to 2- and 4-year institutions. We enjoyed a school visit today at Eastwood, heard a little bit about Avid strategies and how it's being, how it's impacting students there. I know that if Mrs. Lawrence was here, she would concur, as well as Mrs. Merriweather. So would, on Ms. Smith's behalf, would request that we continue our contract and agreement with Avid.
Mr. Kite.
Thank you, Dr. Milliman. And I was at that Eastwood visit, so that was enjoyable to hear more about Avid. This question comes from a positive place. I like Avid. I've loved the presentations that the board has seen before, with some great information about Avid. And when I was working with doing things for the PTO at North Central, I had a chance to learn a lot about Avid and enjoyed seeing kids present, which is always one of the best presentations you can see. My question has to do with, and I'm only asking the question because I just want to know, the continuing to stay with the organization, and I'm not speaking against that, but continuing to seek the official sanction of the group, if you will, and having the license to use the Avid name. Is that something that the administration foresees doing, for the foreseeable future? In other words, I know there are some programs, and you learn what the program has to teach you, and you continue to use that, and you don't necessarily pay the license fee. And I'm not suggesting it's a fortune either. I'm just asking the question. Is this something you foresee continuing with indefinitely, at least as of now?
Absolutely think it's a fair question, and we do ask it. We actually ask it annually as we bring this forward. At this time, when we begin to pull apart what you would have to do, or what we would have to do to replicate some of the professional development around the strategies. Now, we have, as you know, some experienced teachers that have done Avid for quite some time, and we could use those strategies or similar strategies to replicate that in our buildings. But when you begin to add up sub-costs that might take during the year, add up materials costs that you're going to have to incur, sometimes when you have a product that's tried and true and is already embedded in the culture in your district, and it's a household name, if you will, and so therefore there's a knowledge of parents as they've had students go through North Central or through the middle schools and through the program. At this time, we believe it's in our best interest to stay with that path, but it's an absolutely fair question. I don't know if that will always continue. We know that budgets are what they are, and so I think you have to have that honest evaluation each year. If we did move to something more locally designed, I think, as would be the tradition here, we would do that in a way that would wean off of the program rather than an abrupt stop, because there is a great deal of time invested into this program, and quite frankly, again, building something from scratch, if you will, does take some planning and human capital as well. So I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. And just a quick footnote, again, I think it's a great program. I think when you see kids present on this, and kids who weren't always the most organized, showing what they can do with Cornell Notes or any other devices, and when you see the passion that, as we heard at Eastwood today, that when you have really good, passionate teachers that are Avid instructors, that speaks volumes. So
I think one thing that we need to continue to look at, and I'm going to look over my shoulder to Mr. Doss because we do have this conversation often, is how we can implement, Mr. Kaiser touched on this today, how we can implement some of the powerful strategies within Avid, you mentioned Cornell Notes, to the entire school. It should not be compartmentalized. They're Cornell Notes. They're from Cornell, right? They're good for all students. It's a great note-taking strategy. At the same time, we also like to give our teachers some academic freedom and some classroom management freedom and developing note-taking strategies on their own with students. So we're always trying to strike that balance, but we believe there's some strategies in Avid that can definitely be applied more school-wide than they perhaps currently are, which would give us more bang for our buck, if you will.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would move approval of the submission of the Avid implementation agreement as presented by Dr. Milliman.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further question or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Action item number 6, approval to submit the Gladys Brooks Foundation grant application. Dr. Milliman.
Thank you, President Turner. Chad Mihalik, our Grants and Assessment Coordinator, brought this grant to our attention just recently, actually just under the wire, to be able to bring it to your attention. He spent some time with Mr. Kneebone. We looked at pitfalls, potential issues with it, and at this point did not see any glaring issues with it. As you can see through Mr. Mihalik's memo here, we would propose that you approve our application for this grant. We would apply it to our middle schools to add an additional laptop cart, one per middle school. So we would write the grant for $89,009.85 based on Mr. Kneebone's most current projections. Should we change the type of computers we would buy, perhaps we could spread that a little thinner. I think this is based on a Mac lab at this particular point in time. But as you can see, Indiana is one of the states that is eligible for it, and we think we ought to go for it. And with your permission, we would like to do so. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, but I think it's a pretty straightforward grant. The entire application is 2 pages, in fact, so that's right.
No questions? Okay.
Mr. President, no discussion. I move that we approve the submission of the grant to, I've got to find to the 2014 Gladys Brooks Foundation grant.
Second.
It's been seconded, moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments?
Just thank you for continuing to find these grants.
Yep. Thanks. Always good to find money. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dr. Milliman. You get to sit for a minute.
Oh, thank you.
And our next item on the agenda is H, information items and board discussion. The first information item is PlayWorks implementation update. Mrs. Reynolds.
Good evening, President Turner, school board members, Dr. Woodson. Appreciate the opportunity tonight for our 2 principals of the PlayWorks schools to be here presenting. They're going to give a short presentation and some information they're just handing to you. Both Mr. Taylor and Ms. Alexander, about a year ago, first gave me the information to look at PlayWorks. It was actually something I had not been a part of before. Visited in Chicago as I was there for another conference and was very impressed. And I think what we're going to do now is shorten my part and just introduce you to Ms. Alexander and Mr. Taylor. Sorry, Mr. Taylor. I was thinking I wanted to say one more thing, and I shouldn't have multitasked. And so what I was going to just add was, it is covered about 2/3 by IU Health, little less than 2/3, and about 1/3 by a combination of some district funds as well as some funding from both of these schools. So that, and I will just continue to say that that is a piece they are working diligently and have fundraised quite a bit this year for it, already for this next year. And so that'll be another conversation from their time. But I wanted you to hear tonight from them. And so, Ms. Alexander, I believe you're going to begin.
Good evening. Some of you are at Greenbrier today, so some of this may be redundant, so I apologize. But in your folders are just a couple of documents that we have. On the right, PlayWorks created 2 newsletters, one for Fox Hill and one for Greenbrier. We sent them some stats and gave them a couple of pictures and ideas, and they came out and did some data. So they are constantly asking, I'm not sure about Fox Hill, but Greenbrier, what does it look like? What does your data look like? How is your discipline in collecting that data? So those are 2 documents they created for us. Behind that is their theory of change, and so it's just like their philosophy of how PlayWorks should impact the school environment, as well as the recess climate, as well as instruction that's happening in the classroom through engagement. The last document, we are getting ready to have a volleyball team. We had a basketball team, and we played against 3 other teams at Fox Hill. And so it was a group of 4th and 5th grade girls that Coach Alicia worked with, as well as Coach from Fox Hill, and our girls just loved it. So it was a lot of fun just to come out. So the schedule's there if you're able to pop in. The location is there too, but just an outside thing that some of our coaches are able to do with the students, and just another piece of PlayWorks that we are really trying to implement. On the left side, we have some discipline data from Greenbrier. I did add a little bit of Fox Hill, but for the most part, it is from Greenbrier. Our office referrals last year at this time were at 703, and at this time right now we're at 261. 47 of those are from 3 students only. So it puts the data in perspective a little bit, and actually those 3 students, we are going through some special ed testing with them. So we've got some supports wrapped around them as well. But we have significantly reduced our referrals. Out of school suspensions were 57 last year at this time, and we're at 33. And so we're seeing it, referrals and suspensions, but also through recess. So if you look below, we had 81 referrals from the recess and playground last year. This year at this time, we have 15. Fox Hill was at 22 at this time last year, and they have 12. So, half for them, and a little bit way more than half for us. So we've seen some significant changes with PlayWorks. We have a lot of systems in places through PBS as well, and our team has been working hard, but this has been a critical component. Our coaches have just thrived in this environment. As leaders, they stay after twice a week with Coach Alicia and really talk about how to make the school a better place. During winter, we were able to be inside quite a bit, and so those leaders were able to go to classrooms and teach kids games and work with teachers and try to build that capacity. We also have opportunities before school that they've done in schools. We have not accessed that yet. I have a challenge, as I'm sure as Fox Hill does, is getting kids to school in the morning if parents had to bring them. So Coach Alicia would love to have some kind of program in the morning, but the students that we're trying to impact aren't always able to bring that transportation. So that's another component we haven't been able to access this year. But for the most part, we've had great success with it. We do have a coach that is brand new, and so I'm just going to be honest with you that I've had a little bit different vision of how it would look, and I think the coach has been very successful at Fox Hill, and Coach Alicia has been great at Greenbrier, but I've expressed my concerns back to the program that I would love somebody that would really impact the program like I feel like is happening at Fox Hill. She's doing an okay job, like I said, but for the amount of money that we're putting into it and the time and the resources, I think we can find a better fit for Greenbrier. So her personality is who she is, and that's great. But we want to see those things increase. So, and I've addressed those concerns, and we meet with her actually once a week, along with Kyle and Elizabeth, and go through those. And she's adjusted some of those, but it's a challenge being in our school and new environment for her, and a new job. So. We've had great success with it, however, and I really believe in this, and I think it's made a huge impact on our school, and my concerns are funding for next year. It costs a lot of money, and we are sitting at 87% free and reduced lunch at Greenbrier, and so to go back and ask my families to help support it, it's difficult. We did some spirit days, and we were able to bring in about $200, and students paid $1 if they wore a special hat. So we've been trying to do things. I've also submitted to Dr. Woodson as well as Marcia Reynolds some ways that we're trying to look at funding for next year at Greenbrier. We were able to receive a grant of $10,000 from 3M about 2 years ago for robotics. We have not been able to access the materials for that. I've called the company. I've tried to access any documents that we had when that grant was written to spend those funds. All of the people that wrote that grant and the teachers are not at Greenbrier anymore, nor is the principal. So I've called 3M. I've contacted everybody. I'm now up to the president. Everybody keeps kind of sending me to the next person. And I'm looking at, can we reallocate those funds and use this for PlayWorks next year for $10,000? Because it's just sitting in an account here, and we could absolutely use it with children. So I'm doing my best. I've sent several documents and talked with several people, and I'm just waiting for them to give me that approval to use it with kids at Greenbrier, but in a different vision than they had before. Foundation grant. I'm willing and open to write a grant up to $5,000, which is what they've said they would be able to help out with. That would help fund some of that. There are some grants, online, Action for Healthy Kids. They also do grants up to $5,000, and that's something Mr. Taylor and I are both looking at online. Those are due May 2nd. And then our PTO is talked about being able to possibly give us at least $1,500. So with those donations, Greenbrier can come up to about $16,500, and I need $25,000. So, there's still a lack of that funds there. And I just, like I said, I believe in this program, as I know Mr. Taylor does. And so it's really, really important, but the funding is a huge component that we're struggling with, so.
President Turner, members of the board, Dr. Woodson, good evening. I'm excited to be standing here to talk about play, especially after Dr. Milliman's policy review, so that's very exciting. So hopefully we can maybe energize this place a little bit and talk about PlayWorks. So I'm really excited to do that. No offense, Dr. Milliman, but we'll talk more about your presentation later in a follow-up meeting tomorrow. But PlayWorks, I guess my piece, you've been able to hear from Ms. Alexander, kind of the hard data. And, we're very cautious to make a bunch of assumptions based on 1 year's data, but we all agree that Greenbrier data is very phenomenal. In Fox Hill, we're very pleased with what we're seeing there, especially the nearly 50% reduction in discipline referrals outside at our recess. I think what my piece to this that I want to contribute this evening has to deal mostly with what I'm seeing on the soft skill side of PlayWorks. There's a lot of mention about the physical activity piece and the engagement at recess, but what excites me the most is the climate and culture of our school with which our students are starting to pay more attention to with regard to how they're communicating. And a big piece of IB and the attributes of the learner profile, a big piece is that communicator piece and taking healthy risk, being a risk taker. And when I hear our students mediating conversations that they weren't mediating before. And I hear students using language like just Rochambeau and trying to really work for each other so that the learning environment can stay orderly, can stay safe, and that we're working together as a community. And as transient as Fox Hill, and I know Greenbrier can be, I think that is essential in terms of being able to provide stability in somewhat of an unstable situation for our kiddos coming in, to have their peers more powerfully influence them through those strategies and through that team building. And so with your permission, if it's okay, I'd like to share with you, I did a little brief audio recording of some of our junior coaches to talk and share a little bit about what it means to be a junior coach at Fox Hill. So if you don't mind, it's a quick 3 minutes. I'll pull it up here on my phone. Working on my Matt Lauer interview skills here. And that's not it. Okay, so we're sitting here with 3 of our PlayWorks junior coaches here at Fox Hill, and we have Lizzie, who's a 4th grader, Reese, who's a 5th grader, and Chyla, who's a 5th grader. And I would like to ask you guys a few questions, if you don't mind. My first question I'm going to let each of you answer is, what is your job? Or define for me or explain to me what your role is as a PlayWorks junior coach here at Fox Hill. Lizzie?
It is to teach kids to be able to play together and work together as a team and help them have fun at recess.
Okay, Reese, what do you want to add to that?
Well, I think my job is to do everything I can to make Fox Hill a good environment for kids to learn.
Chyla, anything to add?
My role is to help kids have fun and play with each other and learn how to respect each other without threatening or bullying.
Excellent job. My next question is for Lizzie. And Lizzie, what's the best part of your job as a junior coach? What do you look most forward to?
Well, I like being able to teach kids to play new fun games, and they used to not want to play, but now they do because junior coach added new games to
Okay.
recess.
Very good. Reese, what about you in terms of what do you think, how do you think being a junior coach has impacted you as a student here at Fox Hill?
In group sessions and stuff, the things that we talked about really helped me be a better person. For example, when we talked about communication and how your words can hurt other people or change other people, I can use that at home and at school with my brother and other classmates.
Okay, very good. And then, Shiloh, last question is, how do you think PlayWorks has impacted our school overall? Having this program, how has it impacted Fox Hill?
It has affected the school by having less fights and teaching other students how to respect others and how to be communication and have fun with each other without fighting and everything.
Okay. And that's a little voice, some of our voices from Fox Hill, talking a little bit about how the junior coach role, just as a piece to the overall implementation plan, has kind of impacted and empowered them to not only be leaders in their classrooms, but to be leaders outside of playground and be leaders and be seen as leaders in our building. So I'm really excited. The soft skills, really those attributes of the learner profile is what we're really, that's our mission here, here in Washington Township. And so, after 1 year to see students using strategies in class, and seeing that kind of indoctrinated in the culture and the climate of learning, that excites me for what's to come. So I'll open it up to any questions for Miss Alexander and myself that we can ask, because I'm sure there are a few.
Mr. Kite.
I guess my question's going to sound like the least exciting question probably that you'll get, although I'll make a quick comment. That was I really enjoyed when Dr. Hill and I went to Greenbrier today and had a chance to see PlayWorks in action, because it obviously came very highly recommended. I know Ms. Reynolds is very excited about it. We heard a lot of good things, but to actually see the kids participating, and I've thought about your, Ms. Alexander, your observation all day about a lot of kids coming to school now, particularly kids who don't have the economic means or their families don't have the economic means to have given the same level of experiences that many of us have been fortunate enough to have gone through in our lives, to actually have your coaches, the junior coaches as well, work with kids and teach them games. That's no small skill. So I think that's just a tremendous thing. And I've been thinking about that all day. I really have. So thank you. On the funding piece, the numbers again were, could you refresh my recollection? You need to have how much for this for both?
5,000.
All right. And you have currently how much?
I currently have, $10,000 is the grant from 3M that I'm trying to reallocate. And then there's some small foundation funds as well as a grant that we got from PlayWorks. So 16.5 is what what I'm trying to kind of scrape up to get. And so I'm still quite short, with those funds. And so if you want to speak to that.
Just something. I think what I want the board to know is that we're greatly looking at different funding sources, and we don't want to burden this on you at all. I think this is our position, that it's our job to find the funds for it, and so we're looking at some of our own funds within the district that the schools both have, some PTO funds, and just some outstanding opportunities. And I know that PlayWorks has sent us several grants. They're helping us with writing some of them. I feel very confident that we're going to be fine. So I don't want you to be burdened by that idea. I wanted you just to know the greatness of what the program's about, and that's kind of our job to figure out how to pay for it, and we will do that.
Yeah, I'm partially, it's a public confession that I saw a lot more in this when I actually saw it in action than when I first heard about it. I was glad, for example, that Ms. Reynolds, you were excited about it, and you have great instincts, but I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
So, seeing something obviously makes a difference, and this program's really exciting to see the kids and to see, obviously, you have different levels of kids wanting to participate or not, but everybody that I saw today looked like they were involved with it. So I guess my only other question is for Mr. Taylor. Are your statistics pretty similar? I saw the one at the bottom of the sheet, but yours is pretty similar about the, the actual office referrals. I mean, I'm not saying the numbers are exactly the same, and I'm certainly not expecting you to say, no, we had 417, but
Our office discipline referrals from a year ago do not tell the same story of Greenbrier's on either end. One, we weren't quite as high as Greenbrier was a year ago, and we're not quite as low as they are this year. We're looking at variation. We're very similar to where we were a year ago with discipline referrals. This year we're a little higher than we were a year ago with some of the discipline referral piece, but we've also grown. I mean, there's variables. We've grown by 80 students since a year ago. We've also worked at building. We had to build essentially a behavior resource program through special education very early on because we received a number of new students that came in requiring some very intensive support. So they, due to their adjustments and some of their needs, were racking up some of those referrals very early on. So again, like I said, I'm very hesitant to say, which is why I just wanted to really pinpoint the recess numbers at this point in time, because the data otherwise is still pretty steady. It's similar in terms of a year ago to this year.
thank you.
But good question.
Any other questions, board? All right, good job, thank you. And do you have another folder for Ms. Spanrati? Oh, Dr. Woodson said I could have hers.
Just so you know, the real cost of it is $65,000 per school, and IU Health funds all but the $25,000, and they're funding 6 schools in central Indiana, or in Indiana, period, and 7 schools, and 2 of them are in our district, so it's pretty exciting. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what is the term, how long are they funding it?
They fund it a year at a time
Year
is
at-
what,
okay.
yes, and what it is. And part of PlayWorks is all grants seem to be is they want some buy-in from the school district, obviously from the school, but the outside funding all comes from IU Health, and we get a great deal of support from them with this, so.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for staying. And the last item, well, not the last, I'm sorry. The second item under item H is the modified 2014-2015 school calendar. Dr. Milliman again.
Perhaps Mr. Taylor might like to present this for me. This is my plan to keep principals from desiring my position and come and watch my presentations.
You just have to go through.
Working well so far, as near as I can tell. Not a lot to add to what you already have in your board packet before the benefit of those who may listen. We are proposing a change in the 14-15 calendar. This is a draft for your consideration this evening. This particular draft does 2 things. One, adds a weather flex day back into the calendar in the month of February, which is President's Day. That has traditionally been a flex day. It also adds Martin Luther King Day as a potential flex day with some parameters. I won't go through all of those as you have those notes in front of you this evening. Dr. Woodson and I will tag team any questions you may have as we have collaborated on this particular calendar on many occasions. So.
Mr. Kite.
I think just one question. Any thought of adding any additional potential days other than the 2?
We have not explored that. What we run into, well, other than adding them at the end of the day, or at the end of the school year. Of course, what we run into is trying to adhere to the desires of ending school prior to Memorial Day. Right. And with our current vacation structure, you know the drill. There's only so many weekends and so many days in those 181 instructional days.
We also, when we got the volumes and volumes of input, one of the ideas was to add in a whole week during President's Day. So we always have that Monday off, but make the rest of the Tuesday through Friday a whole week. And some of those could have been flex. So knowing the overwhelmingly negative response from doing some things like that, making 2 weeks at spring break, some of those days could have been flex. There was not positive response overall about those additional days, so to build in additional flex over these two, we do not feel would go in alignment with the feedback we've gotten.
Good point.
Mr. Deswanner?
I just wanted to thank you for those changes that you
Sure.
made to the calendar.
Sure.
I think visually, I think it will be very good at communicating to the public exactly what's going on and how those days could be used. So I
Right.
think that's a great improvement. I think my big question or concern is, as we go about changing a calendar that's already been approved, what kind of communication plan do we have to make sure that folks know of
Right.
that change? if they
Sure.
believe the calendar
I think we may go a little bit above and beyond just from the standpoint of encouraging principals to add it to newsletters, summer mailings, registrations, and as early as often as possible. Of course, we'll use all of our media outlets social media outlets we currently use. I think that we did have volumes of feedback, as Dr. Woodson pointed out. I don't know how closely the 1,000 comments from the 500 respondents actually followed the approved calendar to know. I guess it would just be an assumption on my part, totally an assumption on my part, that there may be folks that already assume there's a flex day already in the calendar because we've done that for quite some time. So I don't think it would be quite a shock for folks to see that on the calendar as we start 14-15. But we would do it in that respect.
Any of the groups that we've mentioned the idea to, parent groups, WTEA, administrators, all overwhelmingly just nod their head saying that.
Right, right. It's been well received, anybody that we've presented it to.
The one other thought would be on that section at the very top of the calendar where you had today's date for the board meeting, it'd be great to, once it's approved by the
Yes.
board, if and when it is approved by the board, which I would anticipate it would be, including there that this is a modified or updated as of that date. Right. I don't know if there's any other space on there to note what changed,
Well,
but
we have the calendar adopted at the bottom right. We could put a modified run underneath that calendar adopted
just say
10.
this was changed on this date and.
But the second part of Mr. Deswanner's idea, I think, is important, and that is to note modified to add the 2 flex days. It just prevents unnecessary questions about what, they changed it, and there was no
Sure.
additional opportunity, you know.
And you don't want folks thinking you changed anything else, I know.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, that was, I'll give my able administrative assistant credit as well. We kind of finally came up with this call-out box there in May because we were just never able to figure that out, and I'll give her the credit for it. I don't remember whose idea, but I'll give her the credit for it. She deserves it, definitely.
Dr. Hill, excuse me.
Yeah, just not directly related to calendar adjustment, but encouraging as we hope we don't have another winter as we've just had, but you never know, would be to encourage administration to continue to, in effect, lobby DOE to bank some of our extra hours as a district. I know that's been tried
Right.
and we used to be able to do it, and we no longer are allowed, but perhaps to just kind of preemptively
Right.
see if they would go, well, okay.
For the record, we would actually, and for those who want it on the record, we would actually need to lobby our legislators and our State Board of Education because they would ultimately promulgate rules around that or interpret the rules around that. This significant weather event that hit the Midwest is beginning to spark those conversations in Kansas, Kentucky, I'm reading Ohio, are beginning to investigate just that, aggregating hours. Our friends to the north actually did that a few years ago when Michigan must start after Labor Day. And so they have been with aggregate hours now since they made that move. It's not unprecedented with some neighboring states.
And that, following up on Dr. Hill, that could be something the board maybe directs Mr. Turner as our representative of the ISBA Legislative Committee to recommend that ISBA endorse as part of their legislative platform, because I do know that the state legislature has had bills introduced on counting hours
Yes.
of
Shift it
instruction
to hours
during days.
from days to hours.
But I am not familiar with what the arguments have been pro and con on that, so maybe starting with the ISBA to see if they would recommend that to the legislature.
There's some interesting counter arguments when it comes to, or I should say arguments for the position, Dr. Hill, and you've just stated. When you begin to look at pieces of Indiana code and in the rules in the Indiana legislative code that discuss competency-based assignment of grades and credits. There's the ability to give credit, high school credit, when students are able to demonstrate competency. In other words, test out of courses. Obviously, if they do that, they did not sit in that course for 181 days or 90 days. So there are a couple counterintuitive pieces to our current legislation. Bring in the conversation with online education. Summer school, gaining a credit in 15 days, 75 seat hours, as compared to 181 days in the classroom. So there are some ways to frame this, saying we are already doing this. We're already giving students credit for the competency in their courses. So we'll see if those things get traction.
And nothing against anybody that attends the state fair, but the legislation passed that they have 5 days.
Yeah.
Great point.
For the state fair, and the siblings of those children are allowed 5 days. That's right. Yeah, it doesn't matter, and so we need to look at it. I agree with you, and I will take that suggestion and take it back to them.
Yeah, just a quick footnote, we're going to have
Yes.
to, policy folks, we're going to have to look at a number of changes, including the whole,
attendance.
I'll just say it, crazy-ass legislation that's now law about allowing teachers to lock guns in cars. Let's just call it what it is. But,
Not just teachers.
Not just teachers. but
Anybody parked in the parking lot.
Well, it's more complicated than that.
Who's allowed to have?
It's more complicated than that. But, if you've been to the ISBA's, the regional meetings, they'll tell you that it's about students who are in gun clubs and everything else. So
Right.
we're going to need to look at that as well.
Yes.
There's so many changes.
I'll, just one thing I ran out of time to do today, but it was on my list, was to email ISBA council today on that very topic. Actually, I anticipate them sending something out probably prior to me hitting the send button. But in talking to Mr. Klaus, his first take is that it will not be a significant add to our policy, because while it is a complex law, we are very limited in, as you know, what we can advertise, say, and prohibit. So it may be, in his view, a line or two change to the policy. The unfortunate thing is we may have to live with some unfortunate new possibilities on our campuses.
And since we brought this up, just as FYI, because of the state fair law that passed, if we have a policy on perfect attendance, and I don't know if we do, but it may be with the school, that you have to watch how that's worded, because, and this is coming from ISBA, what's the attorney's name?
Julie?
Yep. That you have to watch how it's worded, because you can't count those as absences, but they're not at school. So you have to make sure our policy or these guidelines of the book, you have to watch how it's worded.
Going back to the attendance
Yeah. And so if you're getting perfect attendance at the end of the year, those days couldn't count against them, even
They're
though they
exempt.
weren't at school.
They're exempt days, much like polling or working as a page or things
Right.
of that
But I don't
nature.
know. I don't know how the wording is. So if our wording's good, then we're okay. But just
I think we'll be able to handle that. Our elementary folks might be new to that game a little bit, certainly at the secondary level, when students served as pages,
Yeah,
or they
college tours.
or they worked the polls or something like that, then it was an exempt day. We don't have too many second graders working polls or working as pages at the legislature, but I suppose it's not unprecedented. I don't have any data to back up my position.
And the only other thing, and I told Dr. Whitson, but just so for the record, so it's on, we recorded it, on the calendar that you presented today for information item, the dates for Monday, January 19th wouldn't be President's Day. It would be Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Correct.
And the 16th would be President's Day, and it's switched on the actual document that you loaded.
Thank you. See, I just gave Ms. Johnson some love, and now I'm going to have to
Take it back.
take it back.
Make sure to tell her it was Mr. Turner.
Sorry.
Believe me, she can take it.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Miller.
Thank you.
And finally, the last agenda item under information items and board discussion is board discussion and liaison reports. Let's start with Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just continue working with the policy committee, enjoying that. Had a wonderful opportunity to kind of re-engage with the foundation last evening as a stand-in for Wanda, and the wonderful things that are going on there in the direction the foundation's going with in co-working with the Alumni Association. Some really exciting things going there. Wonderful visit today with Greenbrier. Looking forward to Allisonville tomorrow. And I need to alert the board of the possibility, not probability, but the possibility of not being able to be here on the 23rd if I get selected for a jury. I have jury duty that week. So just alerting you that there's a possibility, probably not going to happen, but
Our attorney on the board, isn't there out for if you're an elected official or something?
Yeah, I don't know if it applies to, and this is not trying to cabin you in.
Oh,
Dr. Hill,
no.
But I don't know if it applies to school board members who meet after 7. We'd have to.
I understand.
Just throwing that
thought
out.
it was
I
out
mean,
there
the odds are
somewhere.
even if I got selected,
Yeah.
I probably could still
Do
make the
both.
meeting.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
That's it for me.
Hey, thank you. Mr. Zwana.
If I needed a jury of my peers, I would want you to say
Thank
that.
you.
Let's knock on wood that I never do. Very quickly, I had a nice visit with Mrs. Spanruddy at Fox Hill last week, and a little disappointed that we got so involved and interested in watching reading groups and different activities in the class that we actually missed our planned Playworks exhibition time. But it was all good and just a testament to how much there is to see and how valuable those experiences are, I think, for us as board members, as I think we've all shared in the past. And then secondly, greatly appreciated attending my first National School Board Association conference this last weekend. It was educational, inspirational, and a good time doing all of those things and talking about what we do in our service with the other members who attended and Dr. Woodson. So I greatly appreciated that, and I'm trying to digest and see how all of that influences what I might suggest we do going forwards.
Before you go, may I don't think, had you attended the parent council before we left last meeting?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Or was it
I had made a mental note, and I should have written it down. I did attend the parent council meeting. There was a small but very committed group of parents that attended, and I do feel that they've got a good group to move forward with, and I do think that, and there were some questions as to how active or involved they might need to be with regard to elections coming forward. So as soon as folks who might be in that position have information to share, I think they would greatly appreciate it. And it would be very, very helpful to them. I know we got some interesting news over the weekend about that from family members, but we shall find out. Other than looking at their organization and planning and recruiting new officers for next year, that was really the focus of the meeting and the discussion. It was very internal, and I do think they have some new folks coming in that should be able to help out the existing folks that are there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kite.
Just a few things. First of all, and I apologize, coming from a family that included both the management side and the union side, I know that numbers matter and correctly characterizing a union, so I'm going to have to shortcut this to say I was invited, and I don't know if other board members were invited. Sometimes you get invitations from different sources, and it's no rhyme or reason to it, but invited, and I attended the local pipe fitters unions contest. I was invited as a school board member, and I, the least mechanical human in America, went over to observe what pipe fitters do and to learn a lot more than I knew prior to that event, and to watch their contest. They have it actually at the, it's this great training facility that's attached to their union hall, and part of the reason I think they invited school board members, and I thought I recognized some people there, although they were on a different kind of tour group from other school boards, but as well as I know folks who are running for Secretary of State for Indiana, et cetera, they were there, is I think they want to show us what they're doing and speak to something that I know President Turner's spoken to in the past, which is that not everybody wants the same career path in their life. I hate to phrase it as not everybody, you hear people say all the time, not everybody is, college is not for everybody. That sounds like everybody else has made a secondary or poor choice, as opposed to people choose different alternatives, and what they're trying to figure out is, continuing to keep themselves in front of schools and school districts so that young people have at least seen what they do and recognize that as another choice. So I thought it was unbelievably interesting. And I had more than one hot dog and hamburger afterwards in the Union Hall. So anyway, and then, I attended a great production by Spring Mill and had the opportunity to sit with Dr. Milliman. It was a terrific musical production, and obviously it's something that everybody in the room, all the educators, and understand it, the idea of including everybody, and Spring Mill just does such a great job of that. There are the folks who are natural musicians or who've worked very hard to be great musicians, but they include everybody in the class, and so there are some kids obviously with some real challenges that were in every single scene, every single act, and they just do a wonderful job. And
he typically only has one grade, and he incorporated 2 grades.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He's an amazing organizer of all that, and very talented in himself. But so that was a great production, and then also like Mr. Deswaner. And I know Dr. Hill didn't have the opportunity to go this year, he went last year, but Mr. Deswaner and then the other board members, including President Turner and Vice President Spanrati, I absolutely loved NSBA. Mr. Deswaner used this expression when we were out there talking about it that I thought was great. In addition to everything that we learn in terms of professional development and school board members get a chance to learn about kind of what they do and see what other districts are doing, there is that opportunity for, I love this phrase Mr. Deswaner used, social lubrication. By members of the board. I love that phrase. So that we get the opportunity to spend time together and talk about things without the pressure of, we've got 5 minutes before the meeting starts, or trying to come up with a similar date. You're out there together, and so that was a great thing. And I heard an awful lot, and I have a lot of, like Mr. Deswaner, it'll take me a while to process it. I thought that, and it seems like everybody was out there made the same comment. We all loved Sir Ken Robinson, who spoke about education, and I'd seen through my wife before one of his TED Talks, but to see him in person, he's obviously just brilliant and a great speaker. So then there were a lot of highlights like that, and there are a lot of small little starred suggestions I've made in my notes, and one of the things that's nice, and I hesitate to say this out loud because it sounds like I'm criticizing other districts, and I'm not, but to see where we are relative to a lot of other districts, it's amazing. And I remember hearing that in the past from Ms. Schlabach, a former board member who was in the audience tonight celebrating her daughter's success, recent success. And it's true. You see school districts. I remember when, and I won't do the accent because I'll be able to identify where this person was. But we were talking about FERPA and problems with FERPA records, and there was a guy, one school board member in the back of the room who said, well, for years we've just been throwing our old records in the trash. Is that a problem? And I thought, there it is. There's that thing that, you don't want to feel better about yourself at the expense of others, but there it is. So it was a great thing, and I appreciate the opportunity for all of us to go together, and I do appreciate, and I can assure taxpayers it is not a waste of money. It is something that we take seriously. It's like when we're back in school, we weren't cutting class. We were, when the opportunities we had to experience a great place like New Orleans were after hours, after we'd been through long days, all of us. So. And the last thing I was going to say is how much I appreciated the opportunity today, both to go with Dr. Hill to Greenbrier. That was a terrific visit. We had a wonderful young student ambassador. It still amazes me. I can imagine myself back then sitting on the ground playing with an erector set and not doing a good job of it. And this young lady has this presence to take us around and show us actually what's going on in our school. It's off script. She's talking about what's in her heart and what she experiences as opposed to just, so that's a great thing. And then Eastwood, again, that was a great visit, and for me, it was great. And I know this is intentional. When the administration takes us on these visits, got a chance to see the use in the science classroom of the Marzano vocabulary, and something that you can hear about as a school board member that I don't think we necessarily bring to, with the exception of Dr. Hill, bring to it what you as educators do. But having a chance to see that in action and see a science teacher talked about a reactant and all of that, it's just amazing. So that's it. Thank you.
I will say that I did a few things before we went to an NSBA. Attended the ISBA regional meeting for our region, where I was informed about the recognition that the board was to receive, be an exemplary board, but also that, by the way, board, we will receive a plaque to hang our new name tag on. It's just it was on back order. Also attended the Center for Leadership Development, or CLD dinner, because we had our very own Erica Beard was a nominee for that evening, so I attended with Mr. Pomeranke and several Allisonville teachers, as well as Mrs. Beard's husband. She was not selected as the award winner, however, not to steal any thunder from Erica because she's done an outstanding job, but a former Washington Township educator, Nikki Henson, but her last name's different now, right?
No,
Is it still Henson? I said a different name, but she won the actual educator portion of it. So we had a little tie to that as she won that. Of course, NSBA, I think I won't go into that much more than what everyone else has said. I do believe I've heard other boards don't do certain board activities or board development as a board, and I'm not sure that that's beneficial. I know there's cost involved, but I think you'll gain a lot, not just from the sessions, but the actual interaction between the board members, because you're not in a board setting all the time at those conferences. So I think it is beneficial. So hopefully we'll be able to be in good financial standing to do it again for whoever is on the board next year. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and these are more of discussion items, just to FYIs, and they're kind of information that we've talked about in the past. But one we haven't talked about in a while, and I asked Dr. Woodson to get this information for me. But NSBA, National School Board Association, they do a lot of advocating for public schools, obviously, and they do a lot of work that we as local school boards don't necessarily do. They go on the national stage. We get a lot of benefit from their conferences. I know we pay a registration fee for the conferences, obviously, but we're not a member of the NSBA. And I know I asked Dr. Woodson, had we been? I think we were a while back, before my time, I believe. But I'm bringing it up to the board to think about whether we should join them, because, I mean, every dollar obviously would help them promote public education across the country. Just to let you know that what it would cost us if to do it for our first introductory year, it'd be $4,270, so $4,270 for a membership fee. But also, if we were to do that this year, I think by May 15th, they would take an additional $170 off of each of our national fee and our convention fee, so we'd have $850 would come back to the district. So I'm just putting it out there. I am suggesting that we look at the possibility of becoming a member. Well, of course, would ask the board for their feedback on that. I know I hit you with it without, you may not be ready to feedback now, but if you do, I'll take it. Yes, sir.
I want to think about it more. I know that there have been several of us who've talked in the past about dollars. I don't think it's a lot of money when you consider the overall, the district's budget and all of that. However, I know that we're pretty careful with where we put our money and what we do with it. And I know there have been debates in this township, for example, at the PTO level before, when a PTO from a school that maybe wasn't doing as well would say, hey, why don't we see if we can solicit contributions from the other PTOs? And then there was always the issue about where do you put your money? The PTO at school X, the parents didn't give with the expectation it would go elsewhere. And I guess the question is just, where's our money best put in terms of advocating at the state level? Skip joke. here, but with advocating at the state level where it really matters and most directly, and then you think about other things we've talked about, like making changes to board docs, and again, I know we're not necessarily always talking about a lot of money.
I'm not looking for a decision, obviously.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it up so we can start thinking about it.
I'm just telling you what kind of what's milling around in my head about it, because I know they approach you every year when you go to the.
They didn't
MSBA.
approach me.
No, not you. I'm
Oh,
saying
okay.
in general. Like
Okay.
I remember walking by their booth.
Did you? Okay.
Walking by their booth, and they have a big hook, and they actually,
They grabbed
pull you, closer to talk about it. And they're, good people. They want to do good things, but I just want to know more
That's
about what
fair.
comes with it.
Anybody else?
I have not looked over, they did approach me while I was there, and I have not looked over the materials
Okay.
to learn a little bit more other than the discount that would be provided. I knew that was available for conference attendance. Certainly, being a creature of state government, we are most greatly impacted, I think, by our state legislature. They do provide lobbying on behalf of school boards at the federal level. And certainly there is some impact there. So I understand that, and whether or not our contribution of $4,000 or so would be helpful is something that I wanted to look over and see what else. I know that they had mentioned there were some other publications they could send out, and I know for me I would not need that. I don't know if those publications would be helpful to Dr. Woodson or her staff from the federal perspective. I don't know if you want to share information with Dr. Woodson so she can have staff look at what the benefits would be. As a board member, I don't know that I need federal information coming into my inbox as
More
well.
information. Okay. Well, I want to.
I'm open to considering it, but I'm not sold.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw it out and see if we wanted to do anything. Dr. Hill? Yeah, I know nothing to talk about.
Nothing
Okay, all right.
different.
Well, the second item, thank you, Mr. Kite, is about board docs. I just wanted to put it out as well, because I know we've talked about board docs, upgrading board docs from what we currently have, which is the base model with, the wind-up windows and all that good stuff. But this is, again, the pro version. The pro version, of course, costs more, but and we saw a brief demonstration of what the pro version could do. It would make even more electronic for our board meetings, doing minutes online, the administration being able to post their documents without going through Ms. Sutton, through an approval process. There are several things that we could benefit, showing changes when Dr. Milliman sends out policy changes. We could see the updated version. So it does have some benefits to it, but the cost is more. We currently pay $2,700 a year. The cost would be $9,000 a year. And it would be, of course, we'd have, there's a possibility for us to have a demonstration before we decide to do anything, obviously. To have a full-blown demonstration. There would be training involved should we decide to go that route. But I wanted to bring it up because we talked about it prior to going. We met with them. We saw what it could possibly do without really getting to the real details.
My weekly newsletters could be posted in there.
Yeah.
As Mr. Rizwan brought up before, easier to search for things.
Right.
It will track strategic plan goals, it will track board goals, and it can track superintendent goals as well.
I forgot about that
All on
part.
the same device, all on the same, platform.
And there is a public session. It's public section, so it would be still accessible for the general public as well. Mr. Kite.
I do think it'd be helpful to see a full demonstration, and for the benefit of the public or anybody else who wants to see it, for Dr. Hill's benefit, since it was an NSBA, it was not an SBA this year when we saw the demonstration. And Ms. Spanrati, I will say this, however, just from a preliminary demonstration, I thought it was intriguing. I thought it really looked exciting, and I'm not easily wowed by.
Prior to the demo.
Right. I'm not easily wowed by every technological breakthrough, but this looked slick. And although we could never improve upon Ms. Sutton, anything that would make her job easier would be better.
It would make it easier.
Yeah, so take some of the
Do
things
we
away
know
that are.
if there are any neighboring districts that use the
I have
top?
that list. There's quite a few. We've gotten that information.
Okay.
Quite a few who are using.
Pike use it, do you know?
Got that at e-governance, didn't we? I'd have to look at the list. I don't want to state wrong. But there's a lot that are using Pro.
If it's possible to get that list, it'd be great too, because that would allow us to talk to other board members we know.
What happened was when we came on board, we got the light, Pro was being developed. They developed that after we came on board. Now, everybody's just saying, oh, Pro, go Pro, you know.
Yeah.
So many more uses, you know, that boards, cabinet can use.
So I want to bring those two topics up, get us started on it, think about it, and we'll move forward from there. Anything else for the good of the order? No, hearing none.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Was moved to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. We're adjourned.